Westbrook. You love the Philadelphia Eagles. Let me get a hell yeah!
Hey, what's going on, guys? It is Dives, Mr. Crackpot on Twitter. Welcome to Party on Broad. Party on Broad can be found on iTunes and Spotify. Leave a review, smash that 5 stars, and make sure you subscribe here if you're watching us at the Painted Lines YouTube channel. Joining me today is my man Tyson. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at Quibel Tyson. What's going on, dude?
Not much. I'm loving how much hockey is on television 24/7 right now. This is
Dude.
my life currently.
Dude, it's August 2nd, and the real feel was like over 100 degrees, and hockey is going down. Hockey is on the freaking television, man. What's that like? What's going on here?
It's so weird. It's very weird. Sometimes there's international tournaments this time of year, but it's like with teenagers, like under 18. So the fact that pro teams are playing, and it's unreal. I'm very, very excited for this. It's been overall, it's been really good. The quality of games has been really high. I wasn't sure. There's always a little bit of kind of like, well, what are we expecting? I've been blown away. It's been amazing.
Yes, the Flyers got the W today, 4-1 versus the 100-point Boston Bruins. Oh, baby, because we have a lot to talk about here. And I think the first takeaway from this game has to be Carter Hart. Entering this game, man, you had, 3 newcomers. You had NAK, you had Phil Myers, and Carter Hart. 2 of those were absolutely dynamite today. Carter Hart, dude, was just absolutely fantastic. 34 saves today. Everyone kind of questioned his mental toughness. Can he be this 21-year-old, the next top 3 goalie in the league? And he answered the call. I don't think there's anything else to add to that. What about you, man? What was your take on Carter Hart today?
Yeah, he was his prototypical self when he is on. So in terms of just his angles, just watching him, his confidence on angles, like just not getting beat short side as a small goalie. Like he does a really good job normally of knowing when to stay deep and when to kind of be more aggressive. And there was, I maybe could count on my hand 1 or 2 times in the whole game where I was like wondering about an angle for a second. And that is more than normal for any goalie, and obviously as a fan, you're just kind of like, for a second cringing, but there was so few of those. It was just constant like, oh, he's there. Just his ability to anticipate the play, just how aware he was of tracking the pucks. Like there'd be traffic. Like the Flyers all game, they were very much clogging the center of the ice and the defensive zone. And it worked to their advantage. Sometimes, if you're clogging the middle of the ice, and especially, and defenders in the Bruins are, firing pucks through, and if they're deflecting, it can be hard to track. And there's a few moments when that happened, and Hart was just on it every single time. There was just no room for error in his game tonight. And for his first, taste of playoffs, so to speak, I mean, this is round robin, right? It's not technically playoffs. I think the NHL is considering it that for statistical purposes, but he was better than expected against the NHL's president winning trophy team this season. Best team on paper in terms of wins and points.
Yeah, dude. You look at, this guy, Carter Hart. He had the most wins in the NHL in February and March before the NHL was shut down. So many question marks came in with Carter Hart. Would he respond? And man, I'm just blown away right now. I don't even know how to respond, how impressive Carter Hart was. Say that goal he gave up, I don't even blame him for that. That was he was just so technically sound. Just a beautiful performance by Carter Hart. And I think that leads into the next question, like, where do the Flyers go next? Is there going to be a goalie rotation? When does Brian Elliott step in? How do you see this playing out? We're kind of like reading the tea leaves a little bit here. What's your best guess with how Vigneault is going to kind of utilize our guy, Carter Hart, moving forward as they get ready for the playoffs?
I mean, the way the NHL coaches usually approach playoffs is it's the same guy the whole time, unless that guy falters. So you'll see that occasionally, but my guess is that Hart will play again. There's enough spacing. There's no back-to-backs in this format. Hart will just keep playing and keep playing and keep playing, unless he gets hurt or has a few bad games in a row or, gets pulled. But in general, yeah, I mean, I think they're just going to go with him. That's in general what you expect in this format. There's very few rotations when the stakes are high. Now, there's a chance if, in this round robin, if the Flyers find themselves in a position where they can't really move up or down based upon a win, they might give him a break, but they also want him to get in a rhythm. They want him to get hot for a long stretch of time. The goaltending position very much relies on streaks. That's why sometimes, like, you'll see in playoff series an upset, on paper. And actually, ironically enough, Halak, who was on Boston, started today. Tuukka Rask was injured and couldn't play. And Halak is a good backup, one of the best, if not the best backup in the league. Years ago, when he was on Montreal, he just stole a bunch of series for a Montreal team where no one could score on him at all. Just got hot. No one even knew who he was back in 2010. And so that's the kind of thing that happens frequently in the playoffs. Upsets happen because of goalies. So coaches like to have their starting guy get hot quick in the playoffs and try to stay that way. So my guess is Vignon's going to ride him. I highly doubt, unless there's an injury or to him, or he falters, that Elliott's going to get in.
Man, it was wild, man. I'm just so over the moon right now. That was just so impressive. You look at the first period, man. He had 12 saves in that first period. It was essentially the Carter Hart show in that first period. Just all you heard in this game. The Flyers on offense, they're kind of overpassing. They didn't really get many shots on net, but all you heard was Carter Hart, Carter Hart, Carter Hart, Carter Hart, and it was just incredible. And that kind of leads into the second period and my second main takeaway of this game. And that really kind of leads into the Sanheim and Phil Myers pairing. And I thought that was incredibly impressive from what I saw. In typical Flyers fashion, of course, the second period was much better moving forward. Just a tremendous pass from Sanheim to Michael Raffl in the backhand shelf that gave the Flyers a 1-0 lead. That Sanheim pairing, man, was so strong. They attacked the ice all game long. Man, I just can't speak enough about Hart, Sanheim, and Phil Myers. These young studs. Sanheim was flying all around the ice. What was your take on the Sanheim and Phil Myers pairing, dude?
Yeah, so at first, on paper, it almost seems a little scary because both are young. Sanheim's 6'3", though, and Myers is 6'5". They're bigger, both over 200 pounds, both decent skaters. Sanheim just flies. He's an incredible skater. And but they're young, and at times in their kind of trajectories have had some defensive liability issues at moments. And so when you put a young pairing like that together, especially in when you're in this kind of new playoff format, you're like, how's this going to go? And it may be one of those things where going forward, they might have an off game and an on game. It's part of their developmental curve. But I mean, tonight they're just stellar. I mean, Sanheim is so fun to watch in moments too, because he does make a lot of mistakes, but he's such a good skater. It doesn't matter. So he'll do something and you're like, oh, you shouldn't have pinched there. Oh, I don't know about that. And then all of a sudden he's back and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So at this stage in his career, that's fine. He's fast enough. His age isn't catching up. But overall, both of them are just stellar. I mean, that pass to Raffl, like you said, Myers' wrister, top shelf. I mean, that's a side of Myers that we've been kind of waiting to see more consistently from him, where he has this offensive slant, where with confidence, he's willing to jump into the play like that. And I mean, he just looked like a winger there. All of a sudden it's like Myers is up and you're like, oh, are you a winger? What just happened? And that's when, when a team like the Flyers are in full confidence mode, they have the flexibility on that D between Sanheim, Myers, and Provorov. They're all the slick skating kind of offensive-minded guys. They can jump up like a forward if everyone else is aware and they're able to shift around. That's an extra threat they had, and they utilize that fully tonight. And I mean, that Myers goal, that was a momentum changer because the Bruins had just scored, and you were kind of like, oh, they're making something of this, Even though they were getting shots, the Bruins didn't look like their prototypical selves in some ways, but then that kind of looked like it was going to energize them, and you're like, oh, here we go. And nope, just kidding. That was Myers stepping right up.
That was that goal by Phil Myers, that great wrist shot gave the Flyers a 3-1 lead. 10 seconds after the Bruins scored, man, that was that changed the tone. Everything changed after that goal. Let's talk about my third takeaway of this game is the insane depth on this team. You talk about Michael Raffl, you talk about Loughton. Loughton, everyone's kind of like, should he be on that second line? Dude, that guy was absolutely great today. But man, I hope Michael Raffles okay. He left the game.
Yeah.
Looks like he busted his ankle a little bit. We could talk about Joel Farabee. Very excited about Farabee if he plays Thursday. But that was very noticeable. Was the Flyers' depth just across the board? Nate Thompson. That is a deep squad, man. I don't know. I don't know if any team in the NHL has that level of depth like the Flyers do. What was your take on the depth of the Flyers today?
I mean, it worked to their advantage. I think one of my favorite parts of the game was watching, even if you even talk about on the same line with Giroux and Couturier, they're both natural centers. So at one point, depending on what side of the ice the faceoff's on, they can switch. They're different. They'll take the faceoff on an offhand and try to set up something offensively. Like, it's rare that you can do that and not affect the rest of your roster.
Mm-hmm.
Because most of the time, a pair like Coots and Giroux would be separated because you have to, like with the Oilers, McDavid and Draisaitl, they have to be separated. Basically, they need, they have two line drivers on each line, and that's what they base them off of. And for the Flyers, they can put those two together, and you're like, oh, second line, you still have Hayes, you still have Konecny, you still have JVR, who had a pretty quiet day. You still have, there's just this amount of depth, and then even defensively, like there's just such a plethora of guys. I mean, when you look at their scratches, you're like looking at the scratch list, and you're like, I mean, a few of these guys could get in. Pitlick had an amazing first period himself. Ab Kubel, the forechecking machine. He didn't play a lot, but I mean, he's great. I mean, there's just so many pieces here between old and young, and that will. I mean, there's a few other teams I think like Tampa Bay Lightning. They have similar depth. And there's a few other teams that are similar, have similar depth, but in terms of like the insertion of youth that seems to do well, like even Lofton, like he's kind of been this third, fourth line guy that hasn't been doing so well lately. And then, or at least the last year, according to expectations, as a first round pick. But this playoffs, he's been really good playing in that second line role and scoring that overtime winner in the exhibition and again today, and he just looks solid. So
Yeah.
there's just so much there, and then it helps when you're playing with confidence. I mean, they look like the Flyers of February and March, which is what we've been saying the whole time. We're like, they have to look like that to be successful. So far, they seem to pick up right where they left off. So even critiques that I would have, like I was making a list of a few things they didn't do as well today compared to the exhibition or February and March. You're kind of just like, well, this is expected. This is only the second game back in 4.5 months. So it's kind of like they're up here on their curve, and the other teams are down here. I mean, Boston, even though they outshot, Boston did not look themselves, and that's also to be expected. So the Flyers, they look a step ahead on preparedness and on structure. I mean, when your fourth line's leading the way, like at the beginning, you're kind of like, oh man, the Top Guns aren't getting going, and then the fourth line comes in with 2 goals, not 1 but 2. That's huge. I mean, that changes momentum, takes pressure off those top line guys. They feel less like I got to be forcing the puck in the net. I got to be forcing chances. I mean, you saw a tangible change in Bork's play. I noticed that where early on in the first, he's just throwing these passes, like east-west passes that are getting intercepted, and I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, and then almost like after that, the second goal in particular, it's like some of that lifted where he seems to have more confidence. He's not forcing the play as much. He's making more simple plays. He doesn't seem as frustrated early on, and that gets everybody going. So overall, just like you said, excellent effort. Excited to see what else we have going on in future games if they can continue this momentum and getting some of the big guns going. I mean, Giroux didn't need to be on the score sheet today.
No.
Coots didn't need to do anything other than shut down the Bruins top line. It didn't matter today. It may matter in future days.
Yep.
But it's a good start. It's a good starting point, and I think Flyers fans have a lot to be hopeful for after today across the board.
The depth is insane, man. That fourth line was absolutely outstanding today. When the Flyers have 4 lines running that effective, dude, dude, they're in good hands. And when you got a young hot goalie, I was just so impressed, man. So it's been 145 days since the Flyers have played a meaningful game, and to see them just take all that momentum, have it shut down, and start back up again. That is just screams credit to Alain Vigneault. That screams credit to the chemistry, to the intangibles of this roster. I'm just so impressed. We just got done watching the Sixers last night, and that is such a hot mess of a team of great names and great players that just can't play together. It's just poor roster construction. And you look at the Flyers; they have hungry vets. They have these like kids that haven't had taste of the playoffs yet, but they're just flying on the ice. They have guys with cup experience on Niskanen and Braun, and they got some like intangibles like Couturier and JVR. Like they got some newborns, so they're playing for those. So it's like such a fascinating team. It just feels good to have fun and watch sports, because the Sixers was not so much fun last night. That was brutal. Absolutely brutal. Let's look at the top 3 stars here. Couturier with 34 saves was first star. Michael Raffle had a goal and an assist, and then Ivan Provorov. So
Hart, Raffle, Provorov. Okay.
So Provy had an assist there. Any last takeaways before we wrap it up, man?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think there's just a lot of hope to be had. I mean, that's just something that I'm always a more cautious person when it comes to these things. But and it's kind of like you said, I like, I enjoy diving into the analytics side of things. I like looking at the stuff that we can measure for success, and the Flyers are great at those things. But again, kind of like you said, some of the unspoken of things that are really helpful, like just thinking of how Niskanen has calmed down Provorov so much this year. Like you can't really measure that, but you can tell noticeably there's a level of trust there between a veteran that has won a cup and been to the finals before with lots of teams, had success with Pittsburgh and the Caps. Like it just evens him out. Like he feels more confident, like I can carry the puck up the ice, or I can take this risk because I have this guy behind me who I feel like I can trust. Whether that's measurable or not, it's just helpful. And just so much of that roster construction is built that way. I mean, yeah, and I think that just goes to show you like that there is a lot of hope here, and hope for the future. Like I was just thinking today, I'm like watching the Sanheim-Myers pairing, and I'm like, man, you got Sanheim, Myers, Provorov, all not in their primes yet.
Yeah.
And then you have Zamula, who got into that exhibition, who's on the roster right now. He just scratched unsurprisingly today. I don't know that he'll get in anymore unless there's injuries, but the fact he's here is pretty crazy as a 20-year-old. And then you add on to that Cam York.
Yeah.
And so you got these 5. Yeah, you got these 5. That's 5, right? That's 5. And that's crazy. I mean, 5 of 6. You have 6 defenders on your roster. So it's one of those things where they're just, you look at that and they're all strong puck movers. They're not just stay-at-home guys. And so that's the beautiful thing about this construction right now, is you have this hope for right now, or we're like Stanley Cup contender for sure. And then you're like, what if 5 years from now, likely in a similar position, like some of the other guys that may go off, as they get older or slow down, there's a lot coming through. So there's a lot to be excited for now. And there's a lot of names that 3 to 5 years from now, you're still going to be saying, and you're still going to be hearing. And I think that's great.
How you build a team, man. That's absolutely how you build a Stanley Cup contender year after year after year. How would you grade the Flyers' performance tonight? And then we'll wrap it up, man.
I would give them a B+ overall. I think I said all the positives. I think my only negatives were I think in comparison to the exhibition game, I would have liked to see them utilize short passes through the neutral zone more. I would have liked to see them use a stretch pass a little more. I know the Bruins do well defending against that, and I'm sure they tried to move against it, but the Bruins were a little bit slow. Their defenders were a little slow in transition game tonight. I think they could have exploited that a little bit more. But again, I'm kind of nitpicking here. So I think I would say B+. And there's a lot of, there's a lot of room for well, I should say a little room for improvement, and a whole lot of positives. So, right. And I'm a harsh grader, so B+.
That is my man Tyson. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at QuiteBallTyson. Dude, anything you want to plug right now?
Yeah, I mean, just keep following us along throughout the playoff picture. I'm going to be doing updates, game reviews, predictions on the league. If you've seen any of my other YouTube stuff, in particular on this podcast, I'm a big draft guy, so we're going to continue to roll out some of that as we continue to fall through different players, especially because leagues in Europe are starting again. So it's weird. I'm seeing guys are starting to get loaned, and they're like, oh, the 2020, 2021 season for some prospects is about to get underway very quickly here in end of August. So There's going to be a lot of keep following us along if you like the gambit of hockey stuff. That's what I love. I'm way too entrenched in it as a whole. I was going through my jersey collection today and could throw on something different for most days of the week. So
Yeah.
excited for all of this, and excited to keep you guys following along with what we're pumping out as we go.
Man, we definitely got the spectrum of the highs and the lows this weekend, right? So you had the lows of the Sixers and you have the highs of the Flyers. It just absolutely made my weekend. I was pretty down in the dumps this morning. I'm not gonna lie, but man, those Flyers, when you got a hot goaltender, when you got a deep, four lines that are just effective and rolling, man. And we didn't even see Coots. Like, that guy's just fire in the playoffs. Like, I'm not worried. Kevin Hayes, I'm not worried. G will get it. I'm not worried. Man, I'm just over the moon right now. It's just great performance by the Fly guys. Thanks you so much for watching. Make sure you hit that subscribe button below. This is the Party on Broad podcast. Make sure to check us out over at iTunes and Spotify. For Tyson, for myself, thanks for watching, guys. Stay awesome.
Sixers win it! Wow! Oh, man, Embiid just posterized Russell Westbrook.
You love the Philadelphia Eagles. Let me get it.